Let's go, girls. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I'm Michelle Taylor, founder of Women in Wealth. From breaking money myths to building wealth and achieving financial freedom, we're here to empower you to create your own path. Talk Wealthy. Now, join the conversation and let's change the way women think and feel about money. Okay, ready? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talk Wealthy to Me podcast. I am Michelle, your host, and I am so happy that you are here. Okay, so today's episode is all about financial gatekeeping and how do we stop that cycle. A lot of families have this kind of scenario going on and we don't even know it. It's not intentional, but we can be super mindful about changing the narrative moving forward. So if no one ever taught you how to talk about money, this is the episode you needed years ago. So today we're going to be digging into something that's been quietly holding so many women back, and that is the financial gatekeeping, not only within families, but just in general. So if money ever felt like it was off limits growing up, if you were ever shut down for asking how much something cost or how much somebody made, this one is going to hit real close. Let's figure out how to have these conversations and change the way we're talking about money within families for the next generation. Okay, so let's start with the definition. Financial gatekeeping is when access to money, whether it's information, control, or decisions, is restricted or hidden. I don't know about you all, but growing up, there were so many people, even within my own family, that I really couldn't have explained to you what they did for a living, how much they made, why they were at the office sometimes or traveling sometimes. And even though those conversations seem really simple, as a young child, it was really frustrating to not understand the answers to those questions that should have been relatively easy and forthcoming. So this can play out in a few different ways. Secrecy. Obviously, never knowing what your parents earned or even how much the mortgage was or how the family was paying for different things, how they worked in a spending plan. All of these conversations were an opportunity for me as a young person, as they are now for so many of you all with young people in your homes, to change the narrative. Another way is shame. So asking about money and it gets labeled as rude or ungrateful. You guys, we talk about this all the time. Having conversations around money should be encouraged and celebrated. Now, obviously, we want to be careful with how we're telling the young people in our lives, or even us as adults talking to other people in our families about money. How do we do that in a sensitive way? But the questions should be celebrated and answered. It's up to us to coach around how to do that. Also, control. So one person holding the purse strings while everyone else doesn't really understand why something is important or what the plan is, what the goal is that the family is working for, can lead to total disconnect. I have found, even within my own family, that when kids understand why a spending plan is in place or a goal is in place that we're working towards, it makes those no's or explanations easier for them to digest and comprehend. And that's ultimately the goal. And then obviously withholding education is such a pain point for so many of us. Basic skills like understanding, budgeting, but also why we should call it a spending plan and how to build one of those out so that when your kids are getting an allowance or a young family member is going away to college or learning how to manage a first job, these are critical conversations. Understanding credit management. This is a huge one for me and so many of the guests that are on the podcast, because we're not doing a good enough job of telling the people around us and the young eyes that are watching and ears listening why credit is so valuable. Truly, they need to understand the impact of bad choices and how you can pay for them for a decade or longer after the bad choices, even with the behavior being corrected. I know I did. So understanding how credit works and not making that seem so elusive. It really is simple to explain We just have to make sure that we're doing it. And then, of course, taxes. You guys, taxes are so important for the young people in our homes. Are we having a conversation with them when they're filling out those forms and having a new job on the table? Are we talking through withholdings and dependents and what that means and how things are taxed? And if you are getting an employer-sponsored retirement plan, what that looks like, what the tax implications are. And listen, I understand that so many of the women out there, and men for that matter, don't even understand on their own. So that's where these conversations come into place. Figure out how we do better. Let's talk about the things that no one talked about with us and make sure that tax planning and a basic understanding of the IRS and what they're looking for and how to behoove your own situation is critical when it comes to life lessons and adulting skills. So addressing all of these things, let's not make it elusive or secretive or something that only the adults or only the breadwinner is talking about. These are conversations that everyone needs to be having to avoid the pitfalls that we all faced and do better. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, but the result is the same. That we grow up in darkness and the darkness follows us into adulthood. Now, I love that we're all here changing that narrative, but what if we can change it sooner and have a bigger impact on the wealth building and the tools that we're giving to the people that we care about? So here's where it gets personal, especially for me and so many of my listeners. Women are uniquely impacted by this gatekeeping because we're already navigating a world that treats money like it isn't our business. And we are doing better, but there's so much ground to make up. So here's what I'm hearing from women all the time, and I hope that you feel the same way when you hear these things. I'm scared to ask questions. I don't want to seem dumb. I know I have been in that position, and I'm sure so many of you all have as well. How do we stop that from happening? First and foremost, it's the education around these things. It's putting the women in our lives in a position where they can ask the question if they need to, but also that they may have the information already that has been instilled in them from the very beginning. Also, I feel behind. Like everyone else, learning this stuff is not always a given, and it feels really uncomfortable, especially as a woman. And it can feel really uncomfortable as a woman sitting in a room full of people that you feel are so much further ahead than you. That is something that we have to get in front of ourselves. And then my partner handles all of our finances. I don't even know how much we save or why. I don't know what our investment strategies are. I don't even understand what it's going towards. You guys, it is so much harder as a family, as a couple, as a unit to make any kind of plans, whether they are, a year out, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, retirement age, if you don't understand the why behind it. So I probably say this so many times in one day, but you don't have to be driving the boat, but you have to be in the boat. Understanding the basics of why you're doing something, even when you're talking to the young kids in your household, the teenagers, the grown children, the whys around the financial plan and strategy are just as important as the action itself. So please, please ask the questions and understand the why, because the more you believe in it, the easier it is to stick to and chase and have success in reaching those big goals. How many of these things sound familiar? I know for so many women in my life, they probably have said all of those things. And that is the problem, right? So gatekeeping creates financial insecurity. It keeps us dependent, whether it's on parents, friends, credit cards, spouses. It makes us afraid to make decisions, or worse, it makes us think we're not capable. So how do we say this out loud so everybody gets it, even those in the back? We want to make sure that you understand that you are capable. You are allowed to know, and you can learn starting today and right now. So if nobody ever taught you these things, it is so easy to go back and reparent yourself. And again, I say this from a place of absolutely no shame or no wrongdoing. It's cyclical. It wasn't done for our parents or adults in their lives. And so inadvertently, it wasn't done for us. But that can change starting today. So what does this mean? It means becoming the version of you who's financially informed, empowered, and unashamed, even if you're starting from scratch. How do we do that? Well, ask the silly questions. We all know there's no such thing as a bad question. There is no shame in Googling how a credit score works, how to impact my credit score quickly, or asking your bank what a money market is. These are all questions that, trust me, every woman you know has had, myself included. And I think that it's just a question of timing. How quickly do you go out and try and find the answers? But ask the questions. Next, start where you are. Don't worry about buying a rental property if you don't even know if you want to be a landlord or want to have real estate as part of your portfolio. Don't do something because you think it's what you're supposed to be doing. Let's start with just tracking your expenses for 30 days, understanding where your money is going, and then building out a spending plan on how to make your money work for you, giving yourself the freedom to spend without guilt and with a plan is the absolute necessary first step. And then unlearn the fear. So much of what we do and what we say to ourselves around money is fear-based. If you grew up associating money with stress or secrecy or believing that having money was only for the greedy or not nice people, it takes time to build new, healthier beliefs, and that's okay. What is not okay is letting those beliefs and those money habits that started when you were young continue to follow you into adulthood and stifle your growth here, but then also get passed down to the other young people that are looking at you to do better. And this one I love. Make financial literacy part of your identity. I know so many women that may not be licensed wealth managers or consultants in this space, but that act as a mentor for the other people in their lives, taking control of money and how it works and how to make it grow for you. Although it's important when you're seeking out advice that you're finding someone licensed that knows what they're talking about. And if it is applicable to you, it is so valuable to have people in your life that have made great money choices, learned from prior mistakes, and are doing things that you aspire to do, part of the board of advisors you build for yourself. So make those conversations and understanding money part of the person that you are, because then you are able to spread that on to other people. This is a huge part of the conversation. Having conversations around money with the women in our lives has to start today. Okay, so now that you've started the learning, how do you start the family conversations to break the cycle? And this one, understandably, can be tricky, but you have to have the what happens next conversation. You are the one that is going to start breaking the cycle out loud, on purpose, and with intention. So some tips to open that conversation with your family or with your own kids: lead with curiosity. Did anyone ever teach you about investing growing up? Start a conversation, not a confrontation. Imagine having that conversation with the people in your life that may not have taught it to you, and how valuable it could be to encourage them to learn now, not to just accept the reality of no one had ever taught them. It is never too late to learn. And that is one of the things that within the Women in Wealth community, for me, was so important. It's not only changing what we're doing moving forward, but also how are we impacting the stories that people have told themselves for their whole lives and changing their future. It doesn't have to only be the people that are just learning. It can be the people that have learned and need to unlearn. Also, share your learning. Talk about this around the dinner table or on the phone. Whenever you're given the opportunity, talk about it. I just learned about compound interest. Wild how no one talks about this in school and what it means and how it can work for you. Can you imagine having that conversation with a woman in your life and how secretly they may never have heard that and want to shrink away and say, I don't know what compound interest is. But by you opening up the doors for the conversation, it gives them a safe space to say, wait, what is that? And tell me why I need to know about it. It is that simple, guys. Normalize the topic by making it part of the everyday conversation. And then invite people into the conversation. Watch a documentary together. Send a podcast like Talk Wealthy to Me. Have money dates with your siblings or kids. And read books. Share where you're getting the information with the people you care about most. I can assure you, the people out there that are doing the best with building wealth and building community and learning from each other are doing just that. Break the shame cycle. You guys, this is so important. Give grace. Most of our parents didn't have the tools either. They were in survival mode, but now we get to do it differently. I remember watching my mom budget a checkbook every single Sunday morning at the coffee table or at the dining room table and thinking, oh my God, that's so boring. I never want to do that. But the reality is having that discipline is so important. What comes after the discipline is where the conversation and my background was lacking. So do the work, let your kids see it, and then let that open the door to have the conversations to the why it's important. And then something that I love so much is creating traditions. And when I say that, we all think about the fun things like going out for ice cream after the last day of school or a holiday tradition. But what if we created traditions within our family around money? So for a birthday or a Christmas gift, take your kiddo and niece, nephew, whomever it is, and have a conversation about buying a share of stock in a company that they love. That's something that I do for my kids. I hope one day to be able to give this to them, whether it's 18 or 21, whenever they're really ready for it. But to be able to say, look, every year we bought a share of a company that you loved. And so for my daughter, it was a Disney stock. And then we will go on from there. But it makes it fun. It gives them buy-in and it helps them to understand the whys of investing and to feel like they get to participate in something. Make it fun and make it a fun tradition. Money should always be worked in somehow, some way, even if it's just them knowing that every year there's a money date for the family to talk about the vacations they want to take or things that they want to do. Allow them to be included in those conversations. I promise you, you won't regret it. So I know that this seems pretty straightforward, and I have to tell you, ladies, it really is. Changing the narrative moving forward doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't require a ton of thought. It just requires conversation with easy action items for all of us. Parents, aunts, friends, nieces, nephews, and kids. It can be done, but it's up to us. Knowledge is power, but sharing that knowledge, that is leaving a legacy. So you're not just changing a bank balance, you're changing your family tree. If this episode gave you the chills or warm and fuzzies, good, because it can help you change how somebody else is seeing something. Hold on to that. This is why the work is so important. And as we wrap this up, I have a huge favor to ask. Forward this to someone who deserves to be brought into the money conversation. I give you all so many props for doing the work for yourself, but don't keep it a secret. Share these conversations. A cousin, your mom, your sister-in-law, your daughter, your business partner. The silence ends with us doing the very easy work of being curious and asking the questions. And if you love today's episode, as always, please review, subscribe, follow us, and continue the good fight, changing the way women think and feel about money together, one conversation and one woman at a time. Until next time, stay curious, stay confident, and talk wealthy to me.